Everyone, Elise here. So, when you hear a message like 2 or 3 times or more, you're like, oh my gosh, God is actually speaking to me about something right now. Something that God's been saying to me is whatever you run to comfort before you run to God, that's an idol. I remember I was in this really difficult situation. I went through something really horrific and I could not get in contact with anyone for 2 to 3 hours. I was just by myself and I just had Jesus. And, your first response to relaying anything that's emotionally difficult is usually pretty ugly. You let it all out and then you're like, oh my gosh, I can think clearly. If you give that to other people first, most likely their response back to you is going to be emotional, and it's not always helpful. And that's because they love you, right? But God's response, if you give it to him first, will always be clear, peaceful, and rational. I realized that this was the best situation that I could have been in seeking him first. I got peace and clarity of mind before I'd spoken to anybody else about it. And I could deal with that situation really, really, really well. And it might not be those things. It might be reading. It might be binge watching TV. It might be pornography. It might be social media. And you know what? It doesn't matter how many hours I spend watching K-drama, and I watch a lot. It's terrible. It's terrible. But I never feel rested or at peace, no matter how much time I've spent doing it. But if I spend a shorter amount of time praying in God's presence, singing, reading, I feel at peace and I feel at rest. God's called us to live a life of no compromise, to stop putting other things ahead of him, because he wants to give us his peace, his love, and his comfort. So get rid of those idols and live a life of no compromise.